Hi Stitchy friends, welcome to Cross My Stitches. My name is Jackie and today is February 4th, 2022 and this is a special edition Flosstube. We're going to talk about unbobbinating your bobbins and putting them on floss drops. So I've had quite a few people ask me to show how I do this process, and I will tell you it is a long process. It's going to take you quite a while to do it, so be patient. If you decide to do this, do a series of numbers at a time. So I started with 150 to 500 and I pulled those out of my bobbin box first, and I rubber band them together in 4 or 5 bobbin packs so that they weren't all over the place. And then I separated the number series into Ziploc bags. So I put all the 100s in a bag, 200s in a bag, 300s in a bag, 400s and 500s and so on. And that's how I did it. So I did one series of numbers at a time. So I'm currently almost all complete with removing my threads from the bobbins. I will have some in my overstock bin because the thread drops will be full. So I'll hang on to those and I'll unbobbinate them as I need them. But I'm going to show you my process. So I'm going to stop the video for a second and realign the camera down to my desk so you can see what I'm doing, and then we'll talk about the supplies you're going to need and the process in which doing this is going to make it easier for you. So hang on tight just a minute. Okay, so let's talk about the supplies you need to use to unbobbinate your bobbins and put them on thread drops. So the first thing you're going to need are thread drops. So I have 2 different kinds of thread drops. That's a hard one to say. I have 2 different designs of thread drops that I use in my process. The first one is a teardrop shape, and it looks like this. And I cut these on my Silhouette die cutting machine. Now I realize not everybody has a Silhouette die cutting machine. If you do, if you have a Cricut or you have a Silhouette, I do have files for my thread drops in my Instagram page profile in the link tree link. So if you go on my profiles, go into my profile and hit link tree, you will see the thread drops and the different sizes in an SVG format that you can use on your Silhouette Cameo, your Scan and Cut, and your Cricut or any other die cutting machine that will accept SVGs. So these are the main ones that I use. These are the ones that I use to actually hang the threads on my rings. So, and you can see I have a little tag that I made, and it says which size or what numbers are on this ring. So this particular ring has 3608 to 3799. You can see it's not full because I'm still working on this one. So I have the tag on the front, and then these are all those big thread drops that I use to store my threads on. So, and then I have a curtain rod. If you looked at the beginning of my video, you saw a curtain rod with my fancy floss on it. It's the same thing. I have a second curtain rod that will be behind me eventually. I'll get it moved over behind me. That will hold all my DMCs. So this is how those are stored. So you certainly can use a punch to make your thread drops to hold your floss. I do have a video, I will link it below, on how to make your own thread drops with punches and other items. So you can try to make your own. You certainly don't have to buy them. They do get expensive if you have to buy a lot to undo all of your DMC. It's easier just to make them. If you have a way of making them, whether with punches or with your die cutting machine, it makes it real economical. So that's the one size. The second size that I have is the ones that I use for my actual projects. And these you can see they're much smaller. So there's the one compared to the other. I don't want them this big. I do have some of my projects with these large ones, but they are very cumbersome in the project bags. So I prefer the smaller ones. And this is cut on white paper. and it was 80 count, I believe, cardstock that I cut these on, and then I glued 2 together to make it nice and firm. I find that the stronger the paper is, the heavier the paper, the easier it is to pull one strand out of your floss when it's on the drop. So I glue 2 together to make it a nice sturdy one. And I also like to have pretty thread drops, so I do cut one of my sheets in a pattern paper, and then I glue the 2 pieces together. So I have pretty thread drops on the front, and then the white on the back where I can write my number or my symbol or whatever I'm doing, because I do that. These are throwaways. I'm going to throw them away. I can make them anytime I need them. You can do the same thing with a punched one. You don't have to save them. Once you've used them in that project, they can go away. They can get thrown away and you make new ones. But I write my number across the back, and I also put the symbol over here on what the symbol is on the pattern. So I can double check I got the right number, the right symbol when I'm stitching. So, and then I keep these all in on rings. So I have them set up and ready to use when I'm ready to use them. I'm going to throw these back on this little ring, but I have a lot more. I have a bunch made on a huge ring, and they're great for my projects, and they're small. They hold a skein of floss. So that's the first thing. So we're talking about gluing them. The glue that I like to use to glue the 2 pieces of paper together, and again, you can use whatever paper you like. These is 120-pound cardstock, but if you're punching, you probably can't punch through 120-pound cardstock, so you will have to glue 2 punches together. I use the Aleene's tacky glue. It is my favorite for finishing or for making my thread drops. It's an excellent glue. I also, this is what I use to have a thinner tip so I can glue my pieces together. These are bottles I bought on Amazon, and I label them. This one says tacky glue thinned because I put water in it too. So I put some of the tacky glue, a little bit of water, shake it up so it's thin enough to go through this small needle, this needle tip. Let's see, what else do we need? We need a flat iron. So I have my flat iron here. This is what I use to straighten out the thread. You certainly can use an iron on an ironing board and flatten it out, or go buy a very inexpensive flat iron if you're going to be doing your whole box of bobbins, redoing them. This is great to have. This is the actual one I use on my hair, but I use it on my threads as well. So it's a great product to use, and it can be any brand, it doesn't matter. And I'm going to turn this one on and heat it up so we can do this. I also use a label maker. So I use a Brother P-Touch label maker to make my numbers to go onto my thread drops. Again, you don't need one of these. It is helpful, but you certainly can take a piece of sticky back paper and and type in your numbers on your computer and stick them through and print them on the sticky back paper and cut them out and stick them on there. You can easily do that to try to save money so you're not spending money on a label maker. And let's see, is that it? I think it is. So let's get started. So let's talk about unwinding one that's not bobbinated. So I do both. So when I do these, I don't have to worry about measuring anything because I like my thread 36 inches long. So I am a 2/over and a 1/over, 1 thread stitcher and a 2 thread stitcher, pretty much. And if I'm 2 threading it, I like to the loop method sometimes on the bottom to loop the fabric. Sometimes I loop it on my needle. So I like my threads to be 36 inches long, and then when it's doubled, it's 18 inches, which is a good length for me. You have to decide what length works for you. Now there are several ways you can cut your threads to put them on a bobbin. I know some companies now are making little wooden sticks that you can wrap your thread around, but you really don't need that. You do not need that. You just need a process to decide your desired cut. For me, I know I want the 36 inches for my thread. And when you unwrap these, they come to a little longer than 36 inches when you double them up. So what I do is I just take it off the thing, off the label, and I take the first end. Now this is how I do it when I'm doing a full skein. And I pull them out and I put one on my body so it'll stick. If I'm wearing a sweater, this is perfect. Let me back up a little. And then I just undo the whole thing. And it's just hitting my floor right now. So you want to get it all off the labels. Now I line up my two ends. So I'm doubling my floss and I pull it all the way back to the beginning. Now you're going to get a little bunch here like that. Just shake it out. It's not going to knot or anything. And pull it all the way out and go all the way, running your fingers, smoothing it out as you go because you want it to be smooth. So now it's doubled and you're going to double it again. So this is the second time you're going to double it and you're going to do this again. I've got my nail pressing on it so it's smoothing it all the way to the end again. So I have the loop and I'm going to double a third time. So when I do that, this is about 36 inches. It's a little bit more, but it's about 36 inches. So this is how I do my thread right off the labels. And I'll cut both ends. So there's the one end. This is the second end. I cut all the loops. I take my floss. There it is. Take the thread drop that I want it to go on and just loop it on. And they're done. There it is. It's on the thread drop. Okay, so that's how I do it straight from the label. Now, if I'm doing it from a bobbin, if I have little threads extra on here, and this one I don't look like I do. So if I have little thread, I'll take those all off and I'll lay them aside and I'll start doing my bobbin. And again, I'm going to take the end of my bobbin, I'm going to drop this wooden bobbin to the floor so it's out of my way. I'm hanging on to this end. So I'm dropping it. Now I'm going to, on my desk, I have tape that marks out exactly how long I want my floss. I have a tape on this end and I have a piece of tape right here on this end. And this is the length that I want. So I'm going to take it and just keep pinching and doubling it over and just keep doing it. Come to the end, you're going to double it again, go all the way to the end, double it again, and I just keep going. I shake my little bobbin if it comes up towards my hand, and I keep going until the whole bobbin has been empty. Shake it again. Right, and I'm pinching as I go because I want these to stay the right size. So I'm just kind of scraping my nail against it to flatten it out so they're all the same. And I'm just going back and forth until I empty my bobbin. So there it is. I'm at the very end of my bobbin. So I'm going to pull my bobbin off. This is 3607. There's my thread drop that I'll need. And I'm going to cut this one end. Make sure I got them all. And then I'm going to pull off the little extra. So it'll sit up there. I'm going to go to the end of the other side. And I'm going to cut that. So now I have, again, 36-inch lengths of floss. Now I'm going to take my flat iron and I'm going to hold my floss and I'm just going to press my floss in the flat iron and pull it. And sometimes you may want to do this 2-3 times to get it smooth, depending on the temperature you have your flat iron set to. Okay, and then I will flip it over and I'll flatten the little part that I was holding. And there you go. So I'm going to even these out like this. They're both even on both ends, and put them on my thread drop. All the kinks are out, and it's ready to roll. So I'm going to take this little piece. Sometimes I will save these pieces, sometimes I won't. Depends on the length of the piece. This one's a pretty good. This one is 16 inches. I certainly could use 2 strands out of that, or just 1. So I'm going to flatten that out as well. And I will add it to my bobbin. Or not my bobbin, I'm sorry. To my thread drop right there. So it's got both of them on there. Sometimes I will, if we look at $37.99, you'll see there's a couple of different threads on here. Let me see if I can separate them so you can see. So I have 3 different. I have the main one, and then I have, there's one here and there's one there. These probably came from a project, and I took them off the project and put them back on here, and I'll put them to the side. I'll hang them on there, and those will be the first things I grab when I'm using this floss again. Now, the reason I love doing this is because many times I have spent buying floss. Every time I've kitted a project and it was DMC, I would rebuy the floss. And I have a ton. I have a whole bin full of extra floss. And it got very frustrating to me because I do a lot of smaller projects, some of the larger projects, and I didn't want to keep a whole skein of floss in a project bag for an indefinite amount of time, sometimes years, if you don't get your project done, and you have to go buy that color again, and go buy that color again, and go buy that color again. So I stopped doing that. I said, I'm going to stop the madness with the floss. Floss has gotten expensive. Back when I got back into cross-stitching in 2017, you could get them on sale at Joann's 4 or 5 for $1. And now we're up to 65-70 cents a skein, and I'm like, I can't do that anymore. I can't waste all that money when I know I have that floss in other projects. This is the reason I started doing it this way and making my little mini ones. And I can judge on a pattern how many strands I think I'm going to need on that project, depending on the size of the project. Now, if it's a really large project, I will put a full skein on the project. If it's not a large project, then I just pull the strands that I think I'm going to need. DMC is really good at keeping consistent with their colors. Are they consistent all the time? No, they're not. Definitely, especially, I should say, if you have older floss. I have some older floss, and I have mostly new, but I still have some of the older label floss, and the shading might be slightly off. But for the most part, the colors are pretty true. So I take my chance that I'm going to grab enough of it and use it, and then put the extra back here when I'm done. So like I have, let's see what I have here. I know I have some floss here somewhere. See, like this. This is my before system, before I went and started making my drops. This is how I used to do it. So I have different little tags I used and put just what I thought I needed for that project. This project is complete, and you can see I still have plenty of floss left. So all of this will go back onto my original rings where they belong. And I have a couple of unbobbinated, or not unbobbinated, still in bobbins floss that I have to unbobbinate on this. But it makes it really easy. Now, sometimes I will not want to sit at my desk and do this process. I'd rather sit in the living room at the TV and do this while I'm watching TV. In that case, I have this piece of cording that I cut to the size that I wanted my threads. So 36-inch cut. And I will use this to measure out the strands. And once I fold my floss, then I can take this away because I have the strand of floss that's the right size, and just keep doing the same thing, looping and looping till the end. But that is my process for doing this. And so far, I'm really loving having the rings in my floss. I can see all my colors. I can see what I'm out of now, because if the ring is empty or getting close to empty, I know that I need to either buy it or fill it from my stash. and I can kind of keep track of all my floss. And it's so pretty to look at. It's on my wall hanging there. I'm not overly concerned with it getting any sunlight because I only have the one window in my room, and none of this, the lighting, because of the way the sun is set in the window, the floss never hits the sunlight. If I was worried about dust or dirt landing on it, then I certainly could take a piece of fabric and lay it over it and cover it if I felt like it was, you know, in danger of either getting sunlight or it was in danger of getting dusty, dirty. You could certainly do that. Just take a piece of fabric that you bought and lay it over it to protect it while you're not using it. But this is really working out for me. I'm very happy with this, and I'm going to continue to do it and get it fully finished. I have been working on it for several months. I usually only do it when I'm really feeling like sitting and playing with it while I'm watching TV and stuff. I haven't touched it in a few weeks. I need to go back and start doing this again at night when I'm at home, but I try to do stitching when I'm at night at home, especially when I was doing Baringo, which is like the Whipco. I was doing that for the whole month of January, so I didn't really touch my bobbins or touch my bobbins or touch my floss drops to get them organized. So this is how I do it. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to post them below. Let me know if you're planning on doing this with your threads, unbobbinating, or any other ideas you have for storage that might work for others. Please share them below. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.